Do you know the feeling of being young, experiencing urban life, perhaps for the first time? The twinkling lights of apartment complexes and office towers begin to flick on. Neon advertisements soon follow. The buzz of life around you actually puts you at ease. Everything is easily accessible to you now. The great levee of your childhood has burst. Shopping, entertainment, leisure, opportunity, and of course, your bright and hopeful future. This is what city pop sounds like to us today. For most of us in the world right now, that vision hasn't been a feasible reality for a long time. Now, we only find that kind of hope and optimism in the old recordings from better days in faraway lands, something netizens of the modern day have a certain knack for uncovering, preserving, and latching onto. If you look closely, the subgenre of city pop provides an interesting perspective on the relationship between Eastern and Western pop culture, and is a good opportunity to analyze how nostalgia is used both against us and to comfort us. This is an exploration of nostalgia, and how it relates to the broader music industry in the land of the rising sun, and how we as Westerners may compare it to our own. For Japan, the 70s were a time of economic growth, a rising tech industry, and massive cultural shifts. American pop, funk, and disco migrated over to Tokyo after World War II, and post-war occupation introduced Western cultural norms. What resulted was a pop-jazz-funk fusion genre with a polished feel and high production value, furnished with an exotic flair. Along with higher quality recordings and post-production studio equipment came new consumer tech that was affordable and portable. Boomboxes, Walkmans, cassette players, car radios, all staples of 80s Japanese tech, all of which brought music to the city streets. Before personal listening devices, music was something you listened to at home, but as soon as you could take it with you, it became the literal soundtrack to urban life. That was what city pop was based on in the first place. Music for urbanites living in urban areas, blaring from a convertible, cruising through the streets of a sunny seaside city. Or so it sounded. A lot of people at the time considered city pop to be very cheesy, which may come from its comparatively overproduced and inoffensive sound. And while it does sound a bit like so-called elevator music, now I think the more common consensus among the generation that grew up with this music on the radio is that it is the very definition of nostalgia. And that nostalgia is exactly the highest contributing factor to its revival in the internet age. In the late 2010s, 2 city pop tracks mysteriously appeared on YouTube and other Western social media to an unprecedented amount of attention. Maria Takeuchi's Plastic Love and Miki Matsuraba's Mayonaka no Door. Odds are, if you've been on YouTube at all, which you have because you're here right now, then you've seen this photo. These 2 songs pretty much introduced the whole of the genre to Western audiences as late as 30 years after its peak. And while I can't precisely explain why the algorithm initially favored Plastic Love as much as it did, it really is no wonder why it struck a chord with Western internet users. Nostalgia is already a huge selling point, especially on the internet. Consumer media is already a huge primary escape for most people, and all of us long for the days when we were unburdened with responsibilities like bills, jobs, relationships, climate change, the 24-hour news cycle, and the looming threat of World War III. I mean, think about how much anime, TV shows, and movies have teenage protagonists and take place in school while marketing to an adult audience. It's because when enough time has passed, we forget the realities of what it was like to be young and revert to a romanticized version of our youth as an escape. Then it becomes easily commodified and profitable. Japanese culture is already huge in the West, especially within nerdy spaces, which ultimately is what the internet is. And Japan, like the US, is excellent at commodification and consumerism. It's no wonder why these 2 pop culture zeitgeists go along together like a house on fire. It's almost like we can't get enough of this secretive backlog of vintage Japanese media, and that's kind of because we can't. Despite being extremely popular in Japan, city pop came and went unnoticed by the rest of the world because the music industry in Japan is actually pretty different to what we may be used to in the West. Despite being the second largest music market in the world, and has been for over 10 years, Japan doesn't export their music as much as other developed countries. Roughly 90% of physical musical purchases are domestic, with only 10% being international year to year. The music industry isn't the only instance where Japan is very autonomous. During my recent trip to Japan, this is something I've noticed applied to nearly everything in the country. The food is very domestic. Nearly all of the hundreds of thousands of restaurants in Tokyo serve traditional Japanese cuisine, apart from a smattering of Chinese or vaguely labeled Western restaurants. Their tech and their cars already dominate the world market, so imports are rare. Even the people stay domestic. Only about 17% of Japanese citizens have passports. Disregarding the major world exports, smaller footnotes in Japanese culture rarely leach out into the rest of the world, at least before the days of widespread internet usage. Furthermore, the majority of music sales in Japan are still physical. The country has been notoriously slow to embrace online streaming. There are a few reasons for this. For one, Japan has an aging demographic with low birth rates and nearly 30% of its population being 65 or older. Older folks are more likely to stick with the technology they are accustomed to. And since Japan still produces a lot of what Westerners would view as outdated tech, there isn't as much of an incentive for them to adapt to the digital age. Another reason is the more ingrained fan culture. Fans devoted to something they love are, of course, going to be eager to buy collectibles and merchandise, but Japanese fans seem to be more conscious about taking the extra effort to directly support their favorite musicians financially. The parasocial relationships in Japan, like everything else, are taken to a rigid extreme. Streaming services like Spotify are incredibly parasitic to the musicians they platform, taking the majority of streaming and subscription sales and leaving pennies to the musicians that make up their library. Meanwhile, recordings are tangible collections to be displayed and expanded upon, plus collectible re-releases, promotional tie-ins, bonus tickets to concerts, and meet and greets. All of these are incentives companies use to maintain the sales of physical music. On the other side of the same coin, this is why some foreign influences fail to catch on in the Japanese music industry, like they do in the West. While streaming numbers have been steadily rising over the past 5 years, the disconnect between preferred mediums is enough to dissuade a business or artist who hasn't done enough Japanese market research. This unique state of the market goes even further by directly influencing how groups operate, market themselves, and perform, that it actually becomes quite suffocating for many young artists. A lot of music groups, especially idol groups, maintain a carefully balanced parasocial relationship with their fans. Idols are, by this point, a well-documented phenomenon, even building the framework for the way in which K-pop groups operate, which has arguably surpassed J-pop in Western popularity in recent years. There are a lot of predatory practices used against the fans and the idols themselves, who are oftentimes underage. This obsession with youth goes pretty deep when it comes to idol culture. Girls as young as 11 start the rigorous training process and are thrust into the limelight for the rest of their childhoods and young adult lives. Almost all of it is a marketing ploy. Part of the supposed draw of watching these young idols is, well, undoubtedly to appeal to a depraved male crowd, to be frank, but also to watch the group age and progress through their careers, ulterior motives aside. This also allows fans to live vicariously through them. A special effort to document their quote-unquote personal lives through blogs and overbearing restrictions enforce their pure and innocent public image. Some groups sport school uniforms as common stage costumes, and they even refer to an idol's retirement or departure from their career as graduation. I mean, how on the nose could you get? All of this enforces this false idea that your formative years are the most fun and, when you're at your most attractive. Despite Japan's reputation for upholding a high standard of etiquette, idol history is a long and dark one that is still ongoing, because in reality, maintaining this parasocial relationship has proved to be extremely marketable and profitable. All of this is to say that due to these various factors, tons of music, both popular and obscure, is just left undigitized. Just doing a surface-level search of J-pop music on YouTube in your own country actually yields pretty limited results outside of a handful of artists. You'll sooner find edited fan playlists or videos about the music. Copyright is another huge factor in preventing a lot of Japanese music from appearing on the internet. Most contracts pertaining to music between the 50s and 70s only applied to physical formats. There isn't as much of a push on artists to digitize their old music anyway, simply because of societal expectations to be courteous, especially in business settings. Japan is a high-trust society based on respect and order. Most labels wouldn't dare release any music without the explicit permission from the artists, so many just don't bother going through the trouble. A complete 180 from the way Western music industries operate. Though again, this isn't to say Japan's music industry isn't without its problems. So, of course, when a gem like Plastic Love does manage to find its way onto the English-speaking web, people jump on it to preserve it as a cultural and aesthetically pleasing artifact from a mysterious and romantic time and place. The relationship between the East and West is a fascinating one. Both embrace each other's pop culture and media, and both are allured by their respective exotic trends, language, and practices. Have you noticed how many anime series take place in Victorian-era England?
Oh my god, she had giant breasts.
It's a lot. Western style trends and subcultures have also become ingrained in Japan's street fashion. In Harajuku, Tokyo's fashion district, unique style subcultures like Lolita and Gairu have spawned out of direct Western influence, yet only really exist in Japan to the extent that it does. And this mutual fascination has been going strong for decades now, and is still evolving. To further prove my point, here's 6 instances of white people singing about Japan, right off the top of my head. Okay, I just really needed to get that out of my system. There's a lot more than you think, actually. I just thought of 3 more. Okay, sorry. Anyway, there's a few more commonalities between particularly the US and Japan that we've established here. Our mutual obsession with each other's culture, highly consumerist society, and our fascination and commodification of nostalgia. I want to touch on that last part a little more. The term Anemoia was first coined in 2012 to refer to the feeling of longing to return to a time or place that you've never actually personally experienced. You may be familiar with this concept. At this point, it's been thoroughly explored by online art and horror spaces, aesthetic blogs, video games, and fandom. It's often lumped together with the concept of liminal spaces. It's escapism in its purest form. A combination of fantasization and nostalgia, but a feeling that is clearly very relatable. Just a quick look into the comment section of any city pop rip shows an outpouring of sentiments like these. A big reason for this, beside the sound itself, is the shared visual language of the genre. That all starts with the album art. Soft colors and moody settings, nighttime city skyline, and sunny beach sides, lined with palm trees, are a distinct marker of 80s city pop. You'll notice that a lot of them look remarkably similar. Hiroshi Nagai is probably the biggest contributor to the visualization of this music genre, with many of his artworks appearing on album covers and sleeves. His work is striking and distinct. It's inspired by pop art, but has an uncanny yet pleasant surrealism about it. His scenes feel warm and quiet, usually devoid of people, with an emphasis on the boldness of the sky, water, and shadows, almost like a tropical oasis in the middle of a bustling city that lies just outside the field of view. You'll notice a dash of 50s Americana with the convertibles and the signage. The 50s were a time of economic prosperity and general optimism for the future for the US, as the 80s were for Japan. Nagai's own trips to the US and connections to the likes of David Hockney further cement this exchange of Eastern and Western influences, and shared ideas within the scene. As a side note, I've always been kind of creeped out by Hockney's work. I don't know, there's just something about it. Nagai's feels surrealist in a peaceful way, but Hockney's feels more sinister somehow. I have no idea how to explain it. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Can anyone hear me? Hello? A couple decades later, this aesthetic would get appropriated into Vaporwave, a genre that's now mostly the butt of a joke, if it's ever brought up at all. However, I'd argue it has its own artistic merit, transformative from the sunny optimism of city pop. Vaporwave emerged in the 2010s as a niche electronic microgenre. Its roots in the internet are inseparable from its premise and aesthetic. Vaporwave music is almost entirely made up of heavily edited samples, pulled from city pop albums and other various jazzy, lounge, and R&B music from the 70s through the 90s. While remaining pretty ambiguous, there are hints of satire in the artwork and visual style associated with the genre. It purposefully attempts to evoke feelings of nostalgia with its surrealist composition, similarly soft and moody colors, and Japanese titles, despite it being largely a Western creation. You also see imagery of clunky tech and early computer graphics, old commercials for Pepsi and Fiji water. All of these hint to an awareness of why people are drawn to and even manipulated by nostalgia and consumer capitalism. If it weren't such a meme born out of cynicism, it would actually be the perfect manifestation of all the things we've been talking about. And now we see stuff like Frutiger Arrow being recognized as a whole virtual aesthetic now, which is rooted in the same concepts. It's a visual design language that was used for UIs and advertisements in the 2000s and 2010s. It is associated with new tech and meant to evoke hopeful images of an idealist future where tech and nature coexist harmoniously. Enough time has passed since its usage that people now feel nostalgic for it and find comfort in the false promise it offered. It's just missing the music. Though that being said, Frutiger Arrow-inspired playlists have begun popping up in the vein of digital lo-fi beats, with all the light ambient and synth elements you'd imagine. I wouldn't be surprised if Frutiger Arrow caught on as its own original music genre in the coming years. I guess in a sort of roundabout way, the final takeaway of this video is that across all cultures, we as humans keep reinventing ways to make ourselves feel melancholic towards our past, whether it was truly lived or just imagined as if it was. We embrace the naivety we held back then and find comfort in it. All of the things that resonate with our parents and grandparents when we were young are the same things we resonate with now, just transformed into its newest iteration. And while it's very easy to get hung up on the more negative ways in which nostalgia is utilized against us, I think it's more important to recognize it for what it can be, a uniting factor among people that begs us to ask questions about our rose-tinted past and our current state of affairs, an opportunity for creation, reiteration, and resurgence. My name is Circumcision. Thank you so much for joining me. I love talking about Japan. In fact, this is my second video covering the topic, and I do have plans for more in the future, so if that is something that interests you, please subscribe and stay tuned. I usually never end my videos with a request to subscribe, so just indulge me in that, and stay tuned. I'll be back. Thank you very much.